I gotta record this and I gotta go to school. So yeah, this is probably gonna be short, probably 5 or 10 minutes. So I ended off with Izuku basically knocking Bakugo out. So, he also goes unconscious and later wakes up in Bikavugo's office. And yes, the medals have already been given out. And it's only Deku's medal that has been waiting for him. Pretty weird. You see, he wakes up to see Mr. Aizawa to his left, and he starts and he asks questions and he asks what happened. Mr. Aizawa, well, more like Power Loader and Aizawa. Oh, is the bus? False alarm. See, this is why I like recording after I come back to school. But yeah, anyway, he sees Power Loader and Aizawa to his left. He asks them, God damn it. He asks them what happened. Paolo first starts off, do you remember anything? And just all around just starts questioning him. Until a weird question is brought up. Mr. Aizawa asks if he hid his quirk. Izuku looks at him strangely and says he's quirkless. But Mr. Aizawa doesn't believe it since, that whole thing happened at the sports festival. And, they bring up footage of Izuku, and he is pretty much baffled. So, yeah, they leave. Deku basically getting ready to leave, too. Since, the doctors, Kavigo checked up on him and he's fine. Just has some major injuries after the fight. So, yeah. So, Deku's walking home. Going through his dorm room. And, once he gets there, he just sees the same people that I mentioned in part 1 just standing there looking at him. Well, Bakugo's giving him a death glare and Todoroki. He just doesn't care and just keeps on walking. He eventually reaches his dorm room and tries to do the same thing. So, it partially works, but Izuku can only summon one of the gauntlets, just like this one right here. And lightning starts sparking off of it. He gets psyched and, is waving his arm around and ends up firing off a bolt of electricity. It's basically charting the wall. I think that's how you pronounce it. Or partially burning the wall. He does end up putting it out. And he stops doing this and basically summons the gauntlet. So, Deku goes and sits on his bed. He, goes unconscious and wakes up to see the same figure looking at him. He, walks up to the figure and starts talking to it. Figure, does respond sometimes. Some questions that Deku asks, but nothing really. So Deku asks, what are you? He says, the same thing the thing he did in the sports festival. The robot thing. Yeah, that's him. Deku gets baffled by this. And yeah, basically. And the figure goes on to explain what Deku's quirk is. Deku is psyched and exits the mindscape. He tries creating let's say, he doesn't like this idea, but he just chooses it. He chose to, make a robot on basically Bakugo. And the robot, it basically came out looking like this. Oh my god, an exact copy of basically Bakugo's quirk. And yeah, it has the gauntlets, these things. So yeah, he's fooling around and oh my fucking god. And he ends up using Bakugo's quirk, basically. And let's say that these explosions are basically black, blue. There's two versions of these explosions, black and blue. But he mainly uses green. But he mainly uses green. So he doesn't want to be a copy of Bakugo. black being the most powerful and green being basically the weakest. So yeah, he is firing off green explosions. The explosions turn blue and then black. He stops using the quirk, and yeah, he basically and yeah, he didn't put any enhancement on it, and yeah, he did put enhancements on it. In this case, it actually has a jetpack and doesn't need explosions. It multiplies by 2 times everything. It boosts everything by 2 times. So yeah, he's looking around. So yeah, he exits the suit of armor and it stays because his quote takes stamina to work. He looks around and just decides to only use those 2 robots for now. He exits basically UA. Well, he exits the domes and walks out to the forest. He creates his basically his robot. He turns around and basically electricity sparks off him, kind of like this, like I said. He aims his hand towards a part of a tree and fires 250 million volts towards it. Ends up blowing down the entire tree. Luckily, he puts it out. So yeah, he switches to Bakugo's suit of armor. He activates, his green explosions. Since he knows black is going to be very, very dangerous. So, he points his fist, he points his hand at a tree, his palm, more like it, and releases a full powered explosion. This explosion is basically like Baku's Gauntlet's explosion. Very big, very, very big. And kind of that explosion that he used against Lan. Keep in mind, this is the weakest one. He lets off a full powered one. Basically the same size as the one he used at 9 and his Gauntlet's one. So, Deku stops this and is pretty psyched about this. The next day, he goes to the support class, and yeah, let's just say that the one that plays top is getting, let's say, 1B. Let's say, class 1A needed a student, so they decide to take Izuku. So Izuku didn't know this, and when he came into support class, Paolora asked what he's doing here, and Paolora tells him that he's in 1A now. Deku was pretty confused by this and asks why. He says because he plays top in the sports festival and has the most potential. So he tells Deku to leave and go search for his class. Deku exits the support course and starts walking around UA. He finally finds UA doors and is hearing an argument happening inside. He opens the door and steps inside, and yes, this is basically he looks the same as in canon. So he exits basically the class. Well, more like Aizawa is waiting for him outside. Aizawa tells him to wait here, and he enters the class and tells everyone to shut up. He tells them that they're having a new student. They say who, and Aizawa doesn't answer them and just tells the student to come in. Deku comes in and everyone is baffled by this. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it here. Bye, and make sure to subscribe.